Johnny is going to really wrap us up and kind of bring it all together, and think about how we can kind of take away all these little tips and tools and technologies that we've been talking about, Johnny, and really make it work and adapt it to our own operations at home. So with that, Johnny, take us
Yep.
home.
Thanks, Deidre. I appreciate that. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound great, and I can see your presentation.
Good deal. Yeah, and I hope Deidre didn't oversell it a little bit. I found it very challenging. When I look back over the last, our our 3 evenings that we spent together with multiple presentations, and really everybody's probably taking something different away from this, but I do have a few, maybe a half a dozen or so thoughts that I wanted to share with you a little bit as we close out this webinar series. And the first one is kind of like Dr. Harmon was saying, there is no one size fits all grazing system. In fact, what you see here in the picture, this is actually some of our sheep grazing the area outside of a solar farm that we graze. And we don't actually have to maintain that vegetative area. You can see it's kind of it was part of the construction area and part of the area around it, but it is there. And we're grazing some of our ewe lambs there through the winter. So, we wanted to utilize that forage, and temporary electric fence, power one wire, kind of let us do that. So again, that's kind of a unique kind of system there for grazing. And I think as Dr. Harmon, maybe Dr. Poor, maybe both, said we need to kind of start out, with our farms, and some of you on the webinar series maybe have been farming for years. Some of you maybe are new to farming and just got a tract of land that you're working with. So I would encourage you, like Dr. Harmon advised, go get on Google Earth, work with NRCS or Soil and Water or Extension, get a source of some maps, and start to look at your farm. And something that a guy told me one time many years ago is when you start working with a tract of land like this, you can use multiple maps, or, maybe even lay some transparencies across it, and, kind of, where you could look at different scenarios. But think about this piece of land as there is no real permanent infrastructure, no permanent fencing. Dream a little bit, say, okay, where would I put fences? Where would the ideal location be for fences and water and for a handling system? And then you have to come back to reality just a little bit and say, okay, that's ideal, but here's what I've got. I would really like to have a barn and a handling facility here, but it's actually, 1,000 feet away from there. Is that going to be okay? Yeah, maybe, maybe not, and same thing goes with fencing. Do I really want a fence here? Does it need to be permanent? Could it be temporary? I like to use the term semi-permanent poly type fences that you might have in one location for an extended period of time. Then maybe you replace it with a permanent fence a little bit later. So, what you might end up with is something that kind of looks like this. And then this is the farm that we live on, that Sharon and I live on and have leased for several years now. And, we've got various, water locations, and some of these fences are permanent. When I say permanent, that'd be 4 to 5 strand of high tensile electric fence. Some of them would be polywire fence that has been there for, let's just say a couple of decades. And you say, well, will polywire last that long? Well, it lasted about 18 years, and then I took it up and put put some new polywire up there. Again, it is a lease farm, so and the polywire is working just fine, so it works well for us. So and you can see our landlord did build a solar farm there on the bottom of the screen. So that's I always like to say, folks say, how did you get involved in the solar industry? Well, solar grazing deal. And I said, well, it kind of happened to me. So, so again, you can kind of draw these things out. There's a lot of different programs out there, and certainly with Amazing Grazing and Extension, we'd be glad to assist in any way. Again, grazing systems are unique. This would be a group of cows that would have been, a grazing stockpile fescue here, and now they're being supplemented with hay, maybe while they're grazing stockpile. And Oh, this is a different time of the year, and that's actually my wife. And this was some summer annuals. I think that's probably some millet there, maybe some cowpeas blended in with it. And you can see that some of these taller annual forages, again, it's not a one size fits all. You have to knock down some of the forage so you can make a path to put up your temporary electric fence for rotational grazing. Or actually, in this case, I think we were going to graze that with sheep. So we were laying that down and actually putting up some poly netting to have the combined benefit of controlling the sheep, like Dr. Weaver said, controlling the sheep and controlling the predators as well. Again, here's some more of our girls working hard on contract in a solar farm. There's two. You can see the two poly wires there in the foreground. And Dr. Weaver's exactly right. I think if as long as you're not pushing the sheep too hard, I think you can certainly do it with two poly wires. Probably one, maybe if you were moving them pretty infrequently. But again, that gives you zero predator protection. In this solar farm, we didn't worry too much about predation because the chain link fence offered that. And I threw this picture in. That's actually on the Big Island in Hawaii. Sharon and I she had a meeting there a few years ago, and we got to go. I got to tag along with her a little bit, and what are the chances we'd ever get to Hawaii? So, and it wouldn't be paradise for me until we found some cows, and that's what we did. So again, that was just kind of a different grazing system, and they had everything there from kind of open range, kind of Western U.S. type conditions to some very high quality cool season pastures as you went up in elevation there. So that was really fun to see. So there is no one size fits all grazing system. Kind of take away some tools, some bits and pieces from this webinar series that you can help build your grazing system, and it's going to be built around you and what you want and your specific skill set and resources. Second thing I would think you need to take away from this is feed your livestock well. And I think we've had several speakers mention that is really the thing that we're here to do. We talk about grass farming and taking care of the soil and the resource, and all that is very important. But we try to, in a lot of cases, monetize our forage resources through livestock by selling our production of livestock. Or maybe it's not always about money. Maybe it's just pure pleasure, where we are wanting to do a better job grazing our horses, like Dr. S talked about this evening. So you do need to know something about your requirements of your livestock, and we've talked about that. We heard some very specific considerations for some of our different species. We know Dr. Poor talked about the structure of their mouths, and it's amazing how those animals that need a higher quality diet, well, they're built to go get that higher quality diet because they have the right mouth parts to be able to do that. And the ones that, like cows, that can kind of get by on a little lower quality grass, well, they're just bulk grazers. I mean, they're not going to be real specific. They're just going to take in a lot of dry matter to get things done. I think Dr. Poor did a nice job of helping us assess our pastures, with that point step method. We need to know what's out there. I mean, is it good? Is it livestock feed, or is it's something that that we need to look like, maybe get rid of, and maybe manage around or something along those lines. And that's probably going to involve knowing your plants. And hey, look, I've been farming all my life, been working for Amazing Grazing for over 8 years now. I don't know all the pasture weeds and all the pasture plants, but I know more than I did 8 years ago, or even certainly 20 years ago. So you can learn those. There's lots of resources out there. Arm yourself with that knowledge so you can meet the needs of your animals. You need to learn a little bit about estimating forage quality, and I thought Dr. Weaver did a nice job of stepping us through that, or giving us some examples this evening, and Dr. S did as well. Let's know, what stage of growth is the plant in, and roughly what would the protein, energy, vitamin and mineral levels be in that plant. Is it going to be really good? Should it meet the needs of this class of animal or not? So, you need to kind of learn that. And, maybe you want to do some forage testing, certainly with your stored forages like your hays that you're purchasing. I definitely would And getting started, if you're new to grazing, it might be good to get your, someone out there, an advisor, maybe a livestock agent, working with your extension, local extension folks, and look at some of your forage testing, because, forage nutritive value plus intake of that forage, how much the animal consumes voluntarily, that's what's going to get us the performance. That's what's going to change, going to get the animals to do what we need them to do, whether it's, more of a, an active pleasure horse kind of meeting their needs, or if it's a gestating beef cow, and everything in between. So we talked a little bit about, how to determine adequate intake on livestock, how to achieve that. A lot of it just comes down to how much do they have to eat, and is it of sufficient quality for that class of animal? Dr. S even talked about tonight, I think, about horse behavior, and that horse was kind of letting him know, hey, look, man, you probably shorted me a little bit this time. Let's do better next time. And all species will do that. And again, on our ruminant animals, we kind of like to look on that left side of that little triangle back there behind the ribs, right before you go into the pelvis. See what kind of gut feel they have. Do we have them filled up? And are they filled with a nutritious forage that's going to help them be productive? And then we talked a little bit about fecal consistency, what that can tell us, when they're on a real high fiber diet, especially cattle, that manure can start to stack up and kind of be an indicator of some challenges we might have. All species have a body condition scoring system, and we talked a little bit about that last through the whole webinar series. We talked about it, and really what body condition scoring is going to do, it's just going to give us the opportunity to say, hey, is our nutritional program been doing a good job of meeting the needs of my livestock over the last, few months? The intake indicators tell us what we've done over the last few days, but the body condition scoring will allow us to determine that over a period of time. And I've already said that. And again, we can track performance. And we know that body condition score is not static. It's not going to be practical for us to keep cattle in a body condition score 6, for example, all the way through the pregnancy, breeding, and lactation, and then weaning of the calves. And, there's going to be some fluctuation there. Same would be for our small ruminants and probably even our horses as well. If we go from a horse that's being used very little to maybe a more active approach. And if we notice the body condition score slipping, we certainly need to address that with the quality of the diet. Okay, key point number 3. I thought Steve and Dr. Franz Lubers did a nice job of kind of going through soil health, both from a practical, boots on the ground kind of standpoint, and also from a scientific standpoint. What do we need to think about there? And I think Dr. Harmon showed us this map here on the right, and we know that some shows us some feeding areas and some nutrient accumulation in those feeding areas. We can use that to our advantage. Number one, we could avoid it entirely by extending the grazing season. That picture on the left shows you a tall fescue, a stockpile pasture. It was strip grazed. So that's the nice manure distribution we get. We kind of avoid that accumulation of nutrients. We keep it more spread out and dispersed. We can also go back to the picture on the right and say, okay, we know that hay offers us those type of nutrients and a congregation of that. Let's use that. Let's do something like bale grazing or unrolling hay on some of the areas of our farm that need those nutrients. And let's build the soil over time. Let's embrace the soil health principles, and let's make sure that we use them and are managing our grazing in a way that'll support better soil health to help us grow more grass and be more productive. I always like to think about, grazing management and soil health. You've got the big herd above the ground. You've got the little herd below the ground, all the bacteria, protozoa, and fungi. And again, we're kind of managing all of those. We're managing the whole system. We're thinking about it. I just want you to think about feeding all of your livestock, the big girls above the ground and the little girls that are below the ground, and go from there. And we will build better grazing systems that way. Point number 4, learn how to use temporary fence. Again, that's kind of goes back to the power of one wire. All the cascade of good things that happen after we kind of master this deal that is polywire and electric fence. And sure, there's some education involved there. I didn't know how to use a smartphone the first couple of times I used it. Still don't know how to do everything that the thing will do, but I know what it will do to do what I need to do. And we can get to the same place with temporary electric fence. You might need to go to some workshops and different things. You may want to try out some different types of different styles of fencing equipment, find out what works best for you, and then you're going to train your livestock, and they're just going to be very, very patient for you to go take a nice picture and then open the gate for them so they can go to that new grass. And then you get to go back up on the hill above them and take a really, really pretty cool picture. And being a part of that is something that's really fun. Also, use temporary fence. It'll allow you to get out and do some things that are a little different, things you didn't think you would do. Again, this is an area on the outside of a solar farm that we're using some netting there. Again, diesel fuel is expensive, so let's let the ruminant animals do the work and, better manage that forage. Here's one that I kind of changed the name of and a couple of different ways, and basically, mistakes. You're going to make some mistakes as you try new things in grazing systems, and hey, that's okay. It's going to be fine. Things are all going to work out. The sun will rise, and everything will be good the next day, and you're going to go at it again. I think that's one of the curse of, or maybe one of the real good things about this gray hair that I have now is that I know I'll never know it all. I'll never know all I need to know about these grazing systems, and that's really fun because there's always something new to learn every day. And you can get up and like I say, even if you're not doing everything quite right, you're not really wrong, and you didn't fail unless you just quit. As long as you keep working for something better, I think you'll find it very enjoyable. But there are no perfect answers. There's no perfect grazing system. Do it this way, and everything will be fine. There's no magical soil amendments. There's no magical new grass seed that you can buy that has worked really good halfway across the world that's going to revolutionize what you do. Yes, there is good things that are happening, new technology, but be careful as you try new things. Try them on a small scale. Make sure they do work. Make sure that they live up to the hype. And nothing works every time. I know sometimes as I work with farmers in an advisory capacity, they say, well, just tell me what to do that will work. And, I said, well, you could do this, or this, and depending on how much it rains, any of those things could have a chance for success. But if there's no perfect grazing system, I will say this, there are some very, very perfect moments. When you turn cattle into a new bunch of grass and you just kind of sit there and just listen to them snap that grass off, and it could be cattle, it could be sheep, goats, horses, whatever. And then just kind of look around, maybe even close your eyes and just listen and just everything that you experience there. So I think there are some perfect moments. No perfect grazing system, but there are some perfect moments. And you might get into a situation where you're doing some things that 10 years ago you thought, well, I would never be raising sheep, or I'd never be grazing in a solar farm because there weren't any solar farms around. And now it's a big part of what you do. Now, I put this picture in for Dr. S because he'll remember this. We worked together on a horse workshop up in the mountains of North Carolina, and where we set up some temporary grazing. And those folks reached out to us and were so appreciative of what we did, and kind of showing them how to use temporary electric fence to help them save money on their feed bill and take better care of their horses and their pasture and their soil and their land as well. So again, it's not species specific. It can work all the way around. I like this picture. I show this to a lot of crowds, and somebody asked me one time, they said, how do you teach a cow to eat through the snow like that? And I said, and with all due respect, I can't teach a cow anything about grazing. The cow knows how to graze. What I have to do is put her in the situation where there's something underneath that snow that's worth grazing. So the part that you did here with your management that makes this special is you grew the grass, and then you put up the poly wire and helped her ration it out to feed her needs every day. So that's the really cool part, I think. And I had to put this in, this is a first calf heifer, F7. it always never ceases to amaze me. That's her baby calf. That's her first calf. She carried that little rascal around for 9 months. She didn't read a book. She didn't take a class. She didn't do any of those things, but she knows exactly what to do. And again, we were part of that. We helped her meet the needs of her body and that growing calf, and she could nourish that calf and watch it grow. So that's one of those real fun moments. And I put this in for Dr. Weaver because, some moms are multitaskers. Okay. The cow's going to take care of one calf. If you notice that ewe there, she's got 3, and they were really nice lambs at weaning. And ewe, if you know the biology there, she only has 2 dinner plates. And so mealtime gets a little tricky around that household of that ewe. But again, very special moments, perfect moments, but no perfect grazing system, unfortunately. Last point I'll leave you with is just continue to learn, continue to share experiences. You're going to learn a lot through your triumphs, through your success, and through the things that you mess up on. We all do there. We've all been there. And in biological systems, there's plenty of joy and there's plenty of frustration to go around. So let's continue to get together at events like this, webinars and workshops. And if you see an amazing grazing workshop that's going to be held within driving distance, we'd love to have you there. And again, Dr. Poor and Dr. Harmon and Dr. S and Dr. Weaver, we all, as we do these workshops, it's really fun when we get off course. We want to go in the direction the crowd wants to grow, and we have a great time with that. And we get to go to a lot of different places, meet a lot of folks, and man, it's just a blessing and something we really enjoy, teaching folks what we've learned, both in the classroom and in the field and in the lab about pasture ecology and soil health and animal management. It's just really fun to do. So I'll leave you with something to think about here. If you want to go fast, you go by yourself. You just take off and go. But if you want to go a long way, you need to go with your friends. You need to go with people that are on the same mission, going the same direction you are. And they're out there. Now, they may not be in your immediate neighborhood. Okay. Your neighbors may say, poke fun of you for putting up that poly wire, but there are people around that will be supportive and help you on that journey. And I'd encourage you to seek those out. Certainly Amazing Grazing will be there to every step of the way. And so here's the summary of the key points that I wanted to leave with you. And I did put in, there is a 12-step plan to Amazing Grazing. And I won't go through all of these. You can see there's bits and pieces of those probably in the key points that I just talked about. And Dr. Poor and I thought it was interesting to kind of develop this plan. And again, all the Amazing Grazing team has kind of looked at this, and it's kind of a document in process. And we wanted for you to take away from this is that some of you are probably already on step 6 or maybe step 10. And some of you maybe haven't even started the steps yet. And we wanted to kind of just show you that you're not going to know everything the first day. But you will continue to learn, and there'll be resources available and folks out there that'll help you do that. So anyway, that's what I have, Dr. Harmon. I'll turn her back over to you. And again, on behalf of the Amazing Grazing team, I will say this: we appreciate y'all attending this webinar series. We would like to invite you to monitor our social media. And look for an Amazing Grazing workshop near you, and we would love to have you attend.